The void of space erupted in brilliant flashes as thousands of alien vessels tore through reality itself. The Carthian Superfleet emerged from hyperspace like a nightmare made manifest, their ships stretching across the darkness in perfect formation. Each vessel gleamed with the cold light of distant stars, their hulls crafted from metals that had never touched Earth's soil. Admiral Thalrax watched the primitive blue planet through his command display, his 4 eyes studying the pathetic defenses that orbited the world. His reptilian features twisted into what passed for a smile among his kind. The humans had barely managed to crawl beyond their own atmosphere. Yet here they were, scattered across their solar system like insects believing themselves masters of the cosmos. "Deploy reconnaissance drones," Thalrax commanded, his voice echoing through the bridge of his flagship. The massive dreadnought stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, bristling with weapons that could crack planets in half. Around him, dozens of smaller vessels maintained perfect formation, while the truly massive world killers lurked at the fleet's center like sleeping giants. The drones swept through the outer system, their sensors cataloging humanity's laughable military presence. A few hundred patrol craft that looked like they belonged in a museum. Orbital stations that appeared to be held together with primitive welding and desperate hope. Communication satellites that broadcast signals using technology the Carthians had abandoned centuries ago. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Commander Hansol Kim sat in a chair that had never officially existed, monitoring screens that displayed information no human government would admit to possessing. The command center hummed with quiet activity as dozens of technicians tracked the alien fleet's approach. The facility itself was a marvel of engineering, carved from solid rock and shielded by technology that made the surface world's most advanced computers look like pocket calculators. "Standard invasion protocol," Kim reported to his superior, his fingers dancing across holographic displays. "They're broadcasting surrender demands in 17 different languages. Fascinating how they always assume we'll understand their terms." Admiral Li Dong-Wu stood behind Kim's station, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. The old man had spent 40 years preparing for this moment. Ever since humanity's deep space monitoring stations had first detected the Carthian Empire's expansion pattern. His gray hair and lined face told the story of decades spent in preparation for a war most humans didn't even know was coming. "Their fleet composition?" Li asked quietly. "Standard Carthian formation. Dreadnoughts, cruisers, destroyers, and 3 planet crackers at the center. Approximately 12,000 vessels total. They're following the same pattern they used against the Altarians and the Centauri colonies." Li nodded grimly. The Altarians had lasted 6 hours against a similar fleet. The Centauri colonies had managed 8 hours before their worlds were reduced to radioactive dust. Both civilizations had made the same mistake, revealing their true capabilities too early, allowing the Carthians to adapt their tactics. "Send our response," Li ordered. The message traveled from the depths of Earth's ocean to communication satellites that appeared ancient but contained quantum processors more advanced than anything in the Carthian fleet. The transmission reached Thalrax's flagship in seconds, displayed in perfect Carthian script across his tactical screens. "We respectfully decline your offer." The bridge of the alien flagship fell silent. Thalrax's subordinates exchanged glances, their scaled faces showing confusion. In 300 years of conquest, no species had ever responded to their surrender demands with such casual politeness. Most civilizations either begged for mercy or launched desperate attacks. This simple refusal was unprecedented. Mandibles clicked together in what his species considered laughter. These humans were either incredibly brave or impossibly stupid. Given their primitive technology, he suspected the latter. The blue world below them showed no signs of advanced civilization. Their cities were small, their orbital infrastructure minimal, their military forces practically non-existent. "Prepare the fleet for standard planetary assault," Thalrax commanded. "We'll crush their orbital defenses first, then commence surface bombardment. I want this conquest completed before the next solar cycle." His tactical officers began issuing orders to the vast armada. Weapon systems that could vaporize continents powered up with mechanical precision. Launch bays opened to reveal fighter craft that moved through space like hungry predators. The planet crackers at the fleet center began charging their primary weapons, massive devices that could split worlds apart from core to crust. Unknown to the Carthians, their every move was being monitored by sensors that had been watching them since they first entered the solar system. Hidden throughout the asteroid belt, disguised as mining equipment and research stations, humanity's true defensive network tracked the alien fleet with perfect precision. Each ship was catalogued, its weapons identified, its tactical capabilities analyzed and filed away for future reference. The trap was set. The prey had arrived. Now all that remained was to see how long the Carthians would survive their encounter with a species that had spent centuries preparing for this exact moment. The greatest military deception in human history was about to begin. And the aliens had no idea they were already dead. The Carthian fleet moved through Jupiter's orbit like predators stalking prey. Their massive ships cast shadows across the gas giant's swirling storms. Admiral Thalrax felt confident as his scouts reported back on the pathetic human defenses scattered throughout the outer system. Ancient mining platforms drifted between asteroids, their solar panels cracked and their hulls showing decades of wear from cosmic radiation. Primitive automated systems, sneered his tactical officer, studying the energy readings. These installations are barely functional. Their power output is laughable. What the Carthians couldn't see was Commander Park Ji-un sitting 300 meters beneath Europa's ice sheet. His command center, hidden in a facility that had taken 30 years to construct, buzzed with activity as holographic displays showed the alien fleet's every movement. His operators monitored systems that extended throughout the outer solar system, watching through sensors disguised as space debris and communication relays. Scouts approaching Grid 7, reported Lieutenant Choi Soo-jin from her station. Her fingers moved across controls that connected to weapon systems the aliens couldn't even detect. Each mining platform they dismissed as obsolete contained enough firepower to level entire cities, all hidden behind carefully maintained facades of rust and neglect. Park nodded calmly. Activate outer perimeter defenses. Show them what human engineering really looks like. The first Carthian scout ship approached what appeared to be a broken mining platform near Io's orbit. The vessel sensors detected nothing threatening about the ancient-looking installation. Its hull was scarred by micrometeorites. Its solar arrays looked decades old. Its power signature barely registered on their instruments. Then the platform began to unfold. What had seemed like damaged hull plating suddenly split apart with mechanical precision. Hidden sections rotated and extended, revealing crystalline weapon arrays that pulsed with contained energy. The transformation took less than 3 seconds, turning a supposedly defunct mining platform into a weapon of incredible power. The coherent energy beam that lanced out was unlike anything in Carthian military doctrine. It didn't explode the scout ship or melt its hull. Instead, the alien vessel simply ceased to exist. Its molecular structure unraveled at the quantum level. Where a 200-meter warship had been, only empty space remained. Scout 7 is not responding, reported the communications officer on Thalrax's flagship. We've lost telemetry completely. Similar scenes played out across the outer system as dozens of mining platforms revealed their true nature. Each installation that the Carthians had dismissed as obsolete transformed into a deadly weapon system. The humans had spent generations perfecting the art of deception, making their most advanced technology look like abandoned junk. Captain Yun Mina coordinated the defensive grid from her position deep within Ganymede Station. The facility looked like a simple research outpost from the outside, but its interior contained command systems that could manage thousands of hidden weapons simultaneously. Her tactical display showed alien scout ships vanishing one by one as they encountered humanity's outer defenses. Grid sectors 4 through 9 are fully active, she reported through quantum-encrypted channels. Enemy scouts are being eliminated with 0 human casualties. The Carthian advance scouts found themselves in a nightmare scenario. Their formation leaders vanished without warning, their ships simply disappearing from tactical displays. Emergency transmissions flooded the command frequencies as panic spread through their ranks. Impossible energy signatures detected. One scout captain managed to broadcast before his ship met the same fate as the others. Recommend immediate withdrawal. His signal cut to static. Another scout tried to warn the fleet. These humans possess technology that violates our understanding of physics. The weapon systems are. The transmission ended abruptly as another mining platform unfolded its hidden arrays. Admiral Thalrax watched his tactical display in growing horror as red icons representing his scouts began disappearing. These weren't battle losses or equipment failures. His ships were being systematically eliminated by weapons that shouldn't exist. The energy readings his sensors detected made no sense according to Carthian science. Analysis of enemy weapons, he demanded. Impossible to determine, Admiral, his science officer replied. The energy patterns don't match any known technology. It's as if they're manipulating matter at the subatomic level. More platforms revealed themselves throughout the asteroid belt. Their ancient disguises fell away to expose gleaming weapon systems. Robotic maintenance drones that had appeared to be simple repair units suddenly displayed advanced artificial intelligence, coordinating defensive patterns within human precision. Communication relays transformed into sensor networks that tracked every Carthian ship with perfect accuracy. The outer system had become a killing field, and the humans had turned their supposed weakness into their greatest strength. Every piece of obsolete technology the aliens had observed was actually a carefully crafted deception, hiding defensive capabilities that far exceeded anything in the Carthian military. We're losing scouts faster than we can deploy them, reported the tactical officer. The humans have turned the entire outer system into a defensive network. Thalrax's reptilian features twisted with frustration and growing fear. This wasn't how conquests were supposed to proceed. His empire had crushed dozens of civilizations, always following the same pattern, overwhelming their primitive defenses with superior numbers and technology. But humanity had rewritten the rules of engagement, turning their apparent technological inferiority into a trap that was systematically destroying his forces. "Accelerate toward Mars," he ordered, his voice tight with concern he couldn't hide from his officers. "Deploy the main battle fleet. We'll overwhelm them with sheer numbers." But deep in his alien heart, Admiral Thalrax was beginning to suspect that humanity was far more dangerous than any species his empire had ever encountered. The red planet Mars hung in space like a wounded eye. Its rusty surface was dotted with what the Carthians believed were simple human research stations. Admiral Thalrax's remaining fleet approached with growing desperation, having lost over half his scouts to the mysterious weapons in the outer system. His massive dreadnoughts moved in tight formation, their crews preparing for what should have been an easy victory. But as the alien armada drew closer to Mars, the planet's surface began to change. What had appeared to be simple research domes suddenly split open like mechanical flowers. Massive weapon turrets rose from hidden underground installations, their barrels gleaming with deadly purpose. The entire Martian defense grid had been concealed beneath fake research facilities, waiting decades for this exact moment. Deep within Olympus Mons, the largest volcano in the solar system, Admiral Kim Ji-hoon stood in a command center that defied imagination. The mountain's interior had been hollowed out and transformed into humanity's greatest military fortress. Quantum computers processed tactical data at impossible speeds, while holographic displays showed the approaching alien fleet in perfect detail. "Mars defense grid is fully operational," reported his tactical officer. "All weapon systems are charged and ready." Kim studied the enemy formation. The Carthians still moved like they expected easy victory. Their ships bunched together in standard attack patterns. They had no idea they were flying into the most sophisticated trap ever constructed by human minds. "Signal all hidden bases throughout the asteroid belt," Kim ordered. "Begin Operation Red Thunder." Throughout the asteroid belt, chunks of rock that had drifted in space for millions of years suddenly cracked open like eggs. Human warships emerged from their hidden hangar bays, sleek vessels that had been constructed in secret over the past 50 years. These ships moved unlike anything the Carthians had ever seen. Their hulls flowed like liquid metal as they adjusted their configuration for maximum combat efficiency. Captain Song Hai-jin commanded one such vessel, a destroyer that looked more like a work of art than a weapon of war. Her ship's hull was composed of programmable matter that could reshape itself in real time, optimizing for speed, defense, or firepower as needed. The vessel's reactor core contained technology that made Carthian power systems look like campfires in comparison. "Target the enemy cruiser formation," she ordered her artificial intelligence co-pilot. "Maximum firepower, minimum exposure time." Her destroyer accelerated to impossible speeds, its hull rippling as it reconfigured for attack mode. The ship's main weapon was a quantum disruptor that could tear apart the fundamental forces holding matter together. When it fired, the beam looked like concentrated starlight given deadly purpose. The first Carthian cruiser simply fell apart as the quantum beam struck its hull. The ship's molecular bonds dissolved, causing the massive vessel to collapse into its component atoms in a shower of brilliant light. The second cruiser tried to return fire, but Song's destroyer had already shifted its hull configuration to become nearly invisible to enemy sensors. Admiral Thalrax watched in horror as his finest warships were destroyed by human vessels that seemed to dance through space like living things. Each human ship moved with impossible grace, their hulls flowing and shifting as they adapted to combat situations in real time. His tactical officers couldn't even target them properly because the human vessels kept changing their energy signatures and physical configurations. "How many human ships are we facing?" Thalrax demanded. "Sensors detect at least 300 vessels, Admiral, but the numbers keep changing. Their ships appear to be multiplying or merging with each other." What the Carthians were witnessing was humanity's most advanced military technology in action. The human warships weren't just individual vessels, but parts of a networked consciousness that could combine their firepower or split apart as needed. When two human destroyers merged together, they became a heavy cruiser. When that cruiser divided, it became 4 fighters that moved with perfect coordination. Lieutenant Nam Te-ho coordinated the asteroid belt defenses from his hidden command post inside what appeared to be a simple mining asteroid. His screens showed Carthian battle formations dissolving as they encountered humanity's true military might. Each alien ship that entered the asteroid field was systematically hunted down by human vessels that seemed to appear from nowhere and vanish just as quickly. "Sector 7 is clear," he reported. "Enemy battle group eliminated with 0 human casualties. Proceeding to intercept remaining forces." The Carthian fleet found themselves fighting an enemy that broke every rule of space combat. Human ships appeared from impossible angles, struck with devastating precision, then vanished before return fire could be targeted. Some human vessels seemed to phase in and out of reality itself, using technology that violated the aliens' understanding of physics. Thalrax's desperate transmissions to Carthian High Command grew increasingly frantic as his fleet disintegrated around him. "Request immediate reinforcement. Human capabilities far exceed all intelligence reports. They possess technology that should not exist." The response from his superiors was cold and dismissive. "Continue the assault. Primitive species cannot possess advanced weaponry." But Thalrax knew the truth. These humans weren't primitive at all. They had deliberately concealed their true capabilities, allowing the Carthian Empire to believe Earth was an easy target. Now his entire invasion fleet was paying the price for that deception. The Mars defense grid opened fire with weapons that made the outer system's platforms look like toys. Beams of pure energy lanced out from hidden installations across the planet's surface. Each shot was precisely targeted to maximize damage to the alien fleet. Carthian dreadnoughts that had conquered entire star systems were torn apart in seconds by weapons that seemed to manipulate reality itself. The surviving alien ships, barely a tenth of the original fleet, fled toward Earth with their formation completely broken and their morale shattered. Behind them, the red planet Mars revealed its true nature as humanity's forward military base, bristling with defensive systems that could have stopped 10 times as many invaders. The Carthians had wanted to test human resolve. Instead, they had discovered that humanity had been preparing for this war for generations, and the aliens were hopelessly outmatched. The battered remains of the Carthian Superfleet limped toward Earth's moon like wounded animals seeking shelter. Admiral Thalrax stood on what remained of his flagship's bridge, watching through cracked viewports as Luna grew larger in their approach. His once mighty armada had been reduced to fewer than 1,000 ships, their hulls scarred, their crews demoralized by the devastating losses at Mars. "At least the moon appears defenseless," muttered his tactical officer, studying the pale gray surface through damaged sensors. "No energy signatures, no weapon installations. Just the primitive lunar colonies we detected earlier." Thalrax nodded grimly. Perhaps they could establish a foothold on Luna and regroup before attempting to crack Earth's orbital defenses. The blue planet hung tantalizingly close, its surface showing the lights of human cities that seemed blissfully unaware of the alien threat approaching their world. But as the Carthian fleet drew within weapons range of the moon, something impossible began to happen. The lunar surface itself started to move. Massive sections of the moon's crust slid apart with mechanical precision, revealing that the satellite's entire outer shell was artificial. What had appeared to be natural rock formations and ancient impact craters were actually camouflaged hull plating that had concealed the moon's true nature for generations. The celestial body that humans had gazed upon for millennia was not a natural satellite at all, but the greatest fortress ever constructed. Deep within Luna's core, General Park Min-soo stood in a command center that stretched for kilometers in every direction. The facility was a marvel of human engineering, carved from solid bedrock and filled with technology that represented centuries of secret development. Holographic displays showed the alien fleet's approach, while quantum computers calculated firing solutions with impossible precision. "Open communications to the Carthian fleet," Park ordered, his voice carrying absolute authority. It's time they understood what they're truly facing. The transmission reached Admiral Thalrax's flagship on all frequencies, broadcast with power levels that should have been impossible for the moon's apparent technology. The voice that spoke was calm and measured, carrying the weight of absolute confidence. "Admiral Thalrax, this is General Park Min-soo of the Luna Defense Command. We wish to inform you that Earth has been aware of the Carthian hegemony's expansion pattern for quite some time. Every piece of technology you observed during your approach was deliberately chosen to appear primitive and outdated." Thalrax's blood turned cold as the implications hit him. The humans had been deceiving his empire from the very beginning, presenting a facade of technological inferiority while hiding their true capabilities. "We have been preparing for this encounter for over 2 centuries, Park's voice continued. "Your species' pattern of conquest was well documented by refugees from the Alterian system and survivors from the Centauri colonies. They managed to send us detailed intelligence about your tactics and technology before their worlds fell to your forces." The revelation struck like a physical blow. The Alterians and Centaurians hadn't been completely exterminated as his empire believed. Some had escaped and reached Earth, warning humanity about the Carthian threat and providing the intelligence needed to prepare for this invasion. As the lunar surface continued to unfold, weapon systems of incredible size and complexity were revealed. Massive energy cannons emerged from hidden bays, their crystalline focusing arrays pulsing with contained power. Missile launchers the size of city blocks rotated into firing position, loaded with warheads that contained technology beyond Carthian understanding. The moon itself had been transformed into a weapon platform that dwarfed anything in the known galaxy. "Your empire made a critical error in judgment," General Park's voice continued. "You assumed that a species' apparent technological level represented their actual capabilities. Humanity learned long ago that sometimes the greatest strength comes from appearing weak, until the moment of truth arrives." Robotic maintenance systems across Luna's surface worked with perfect coordination, preparing weapon systems that had been hidden for generations. Each robotic unit moved with inhuman precision, their artificial minds linked to quantum networks that processed tactical data faster than any biological brain could comprehend. The machines had been waiting patiently for decades, maintaining systems that would determine the fate of both species. Admiral Thalrax realized with growing horror that his entire invasion had been orchestrated by the humans themselves. Earth wasn't a primitive world caught off guard by superior alien technology. It was a fortress that had spent centuries preparing for this exact scenario, luring the Carthian fleet into an elaborate trap from which there could be no escape. The moon's primary weapons began to charge, their energy readings climbing to levels that made his flagship's main guns look like children's toys. Power signatures that defied Carthian science filled his tactical displays, showing energy concentrations that could crack planets apart or unmake matter at the quantum level. "This is impossible," whispered his science officer. "The energy levels we're detecting exceed our theoretical maximums by several orders of magnitude." But it wasn't impossible. It was simply the result of human ingenuity applied to the problem of survival against overwhelming odds. Faced with the threat of alien conquest, humanity had done what it did best. They had prepared, planned, built weapons that could ensure their species' continued existence. The trap was complete, and the Carthian Empire's greatest fleet found themselves at the mercy of a species they had dismissed as primitive and weak. The lunar weapons fired with the fury of contained stars, their energy beams lancing through space like the judgment of gods. Admiral Thalrax felt his flagship shudder as the first wave of human fire struck his remaining fleet. The bridge around him exploded in sparks and flame as systems overloaded from energy discharges that violated every law of physics his species understood. "Emergency transmission to High Command," he screamed over the chaos. His communications officer, bleeding from a head wound, frantically worked the controls as the ship's hull began to buckle under impossible forces. Thalrax's final message crackled across the void toward the distant Carthian homeworld. "Do not send reinforcements. Earth is not what we believed. They are not primitive. They are something far more dangerous than we ever imagined. A quantum disruptor beam struck his flagship's communication array. The transmission dissolved into static. The Admiral's warning would never reach its destination in any recognizable form. Captain John Woo Jin observed the battle's final moments from his concealed observation post on the dark side of Luna. Through quantum-enhanced optics, he watched as the last Carthian vessels were methodically destroyed by human forces that moved with terrifying precision. Each alien ship was targeted and eliminated with clinical efficiency, their hulls torn apart by weapons that seemed to manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself. "Sector 7 clear," reported one of his tactical officers. "No enemy vessels remaining in that grid." "Sector 12 eliminated," came another report. "Debris field being processed by cleanup drones." The human fleet moved through space like a perfectly choreographed dance of death. Stealth ships that had remained invisible throughout the battle now revealed themselves, their hulls rippling with adaptive camouflage technology. Each vessel was equipped with matter converters that could break down alien wreckage at the molecular level, leaving no trace of the battle that would tell a coherent story to future investigators. Robotic swarms emerged from hidden compartments in the human ships, millions of microscopic machines that consumed every piece of Carthian debris floating in space. The tiny robots worked with incredible speed, breaking down alien metal and technology into basic elements that were then absorbed into human manufacturing systems. Within hours, there would be no evidence that the massive alien fleet had ever existed. Weeks passed before Carthian High Command grew concerned about their missing superfleet. The Empire's most advanced long-range sensors probed Earth's solar system, searching for any trace of their 12,000 ships and their crews. They found nothing but empty space and the faint background radiation of distant stars. "Probe deeper," ordered the Carthian Supreme Admiral from his command chamber on the Empire's capital world. "A fleet that size cannot simply vanish without leaving some trace." But the searches revealed nothing. No wreckage. No distress signals. No evidence of battle. The massive armada that had been the pride of the Carthian military had disappeared as completely as if it had never existed. Some officials suggested that the fleet might have encountered a natural phenomenon, a black hole or quantum storm, but the mathematics didn't support such theories. Commander Kang Yi-jin submitted her final report from Earth Defense Command, a facility hidden beneath the Himalayas that officially didn't exist. Her words were precise and clinical. Operation Solar Shield completed successfully. All hostile vessels eliminated with 0 human casualties. Debris fields sanitized according to protocol. Earth's defensive capabilities remain classified at the highest levels. The Human Defense Network began powering down its weapons and returning to standby mode. Throughout the solar system, installations that had revealed their true nature during the battle resumed their disguises as primitive mining platforms and research stations. The moon's surface sealed itself with mechanical precision, its weapon ports covered by artificial rock indistinguishable from the original lunar crust. Advanced holographic projectors activated across Luna's surface, creating the illusion of ancient impact craters and geological formations that had never actually existed. To any observer, Earth's satellite appeared exactly as it had for millions of years, a simple, lifeless rock orbiting a primitive world. On Earth below, 7 billion humans went about their daily lives completely unaware that their species had just survived its greatest test. Children played in parks while their parents worked in offices, none of them knowing that alien weapons capable of cracking planets had been aimed at their world just days before. The secret of Earth's true defensive capabilities was maintained by a select few who had sworn oaths of silence that bound them until death. In the years that followed, whispers spread through the galaxy's various civilizations about the fate of the mighty Carthian superfleet. Traders spoke in hushed tones about the Empire's greatest armada that had simply vanished without explanation. Military strategists studied the available data and came to disturbing conclusions about what might have befallen such a powerful force. New rules emerged among the starfaring species. Avoid the small blue world in the outer spiral arm. Some civilizations marked Earth's system as forbidden territory on their navigation charts. Others simply pretended the system didn't exist, erasing it from their databases entirely. Admiral Li Dongwu sat in his office overlooking the glittering lights of Seoul, reviewing the final casualty reports of humanity's first interstellar war. The document was remarkably brief. Human military losses, 0. Civilian casualties, 0. Enemy vessels destroyed, 12,047. Enemy survivors, 0. The old admiral closed the file and gazed out at the city below, where people hurried through their evening routines without any idea of what they had just survived. Humanity had proven itself capable of defending against threats from beyond the stars. But the price of that defense was eternal vigilance. Deep beneath Earth's surface, in facilities that spanned continents, human scientists and engineers continued their work. New weapons were designed, tested, and deployed. Advanced detection systems monitored the galaxy for signs of other hostile civilizations. Robotic factories produced defensive platforms disguised as space junk and scattered them throughout the solar system. Humanity had learned the greatest lesson of cosmic survival: appear weak when you are strong, and strike without mercy when threatened. The Carthians had discovered too late that Earth was not a world to be conquered, but a fortress that had been preparing for interstellar war for generations. The blue planet continued its ancient orbit around Sol, looking peaceful and primitive to any casual observer. But hidden beneath that facade lay the most sophisticated military network ever conceived, waiting patiently for the next threat to reveal itself, so that humanity could teach another species the price of underestimating Earth's children. Deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, in a command center that had no official existence, Admiral Li Dongwu studied the holographic display of the solar system. The Carthian threat had been eliminated, but his instincts warned him that this was only the beginning. The Empire would eventually send more ships, perhaps an even larger fleet, to investigate the disappearance of their armada. "We need to accelerate production on the next generation of defensive systems," Li said to his senior commanders. "The Carthians will be back. They always come back." General Park Min-soo nodded from his command post within Luna's core. "The moon's shields have been upgraded to withstand sustained bombardment from planet cracker weapons. We've also deployed an additional 2,000 stealth platforms throughout the asteroid belt." Commander Kim Ji-hoon, stationed at the Mars defense grid, added his report. "Olympus Mons base is now fully operational. We've installed quantum entanglement communication arrays that cannot be intercepted or jammed. The Carthians won't even know we're talking to each other during the next engagement." Admiral Li turned to his intelligence chief, Commander Kong Yi-jin. "What about the other species? The Altarians and Centaurians who warned us, have they integrated into our defense network?" Kong nodded. "Their scientists are working alongside our best minds. The Altarians have shared detailed schematics of Carthian warship vulnerabilities. The Centaurians have provided invaluable data on the Empire's command structure and communication protocols. Together, we're building weapons that target weaknesses the Carthians don't even know they have." The meeting continued for hours, as humanity's hidden leadership planned for a war that might not come for years, but would come eventually. Every detail was examined, every scenario considered. The Carthian Empire had conquered dozens of civilizations, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity. An enemy that had spent generations preparing for their arrival. Far beyond the solar system, in the capital of the Carthian Empire, Supreme Admiral Zarthan reviewed the final reports on the missing Superfleet. His scaled fingers traced the holographic displays showing the empty space where 12,000 warships had vanished. "This is unacceptable," Zarthan growled, his 4 eyes burning with fury. "A fleet does not simply disappear. There must be evidence, debris, energy signatures, distress signals. Something." His intelligence chief, a scarred veteran named Vexer, shook his head slowly. "We have found nothing, Supreme Admiral. It is as if the fleet never existed. The human system appears completely normal: primitive colonies, outdated orbital stations, no sign of advanced military technology." "Appears," Zarthan repeated. "You said, appears." Vexer hesitated. "The sensors show nothing unusual. But that is what concerns me. A battle that destroyed 12,000 ships would leave debris fields detectable across light years. There should be wreckage. There is none." Zarthan's tail lashed in agitation. "Then they did not engage the humans. Perhaps they encountered a natural phenomenon, a quantum rift or subspace anomaly." "The fleet's last transmission mentioned human weapons, Supreme Admiral. They reported advanced technology that violated known physics." "A trick," Zarthan dismissed. "The humans are primitive. They could not have destroyed our fleet. Perhaps the ships mutinied. Perhaps they fled to establish their own empire elsewhere." Vexer said nothing. He had served the Empire for 3 centuries and had learned when to speak and when to remain silent. This was a time for silence. "Send another fleet," Zothan ordered. "This time, 50,000 ships. And send our best commanders, Vorton and his elite battle group. I want the human system scoured of all life. Leave nothing but asteroids." The order was given. Across the Carthian Empire, shipyards roared to life. Massive vessels were pulled from orbital docks, their crews summoned from leave, their weapon systems tested and certified. The largest armada in Carthian history began to assemble. But unknown to the Empire, their communications were being monitored. Deep within the Oort cloud, hidden inside a comet that had been hollowed out decades ago, a human listening post intercepted the Carthian transmission. Commander Yoon Sua, a signals intelligence specialist with 20 years of experience, decoded the orders within hours. 50,000 ships, she reported to Admiral Lee. They're sending everything they have. Estimated arrival in 14 months. Lee studied the report, his face unreadable. 14 months. We have 14 months to prepare. We've already prepared for this moment for 2 centuries, Admiral, Commander Kong reminded him. Another 14 months will only make us stronger. Lee nodded slowly. Activate all hidden shipyards. Begin full-scale production of the Nightshade-class destroyers. I want every asteroid in the belt converted into a weapons platform. And contact our allies, the Altarians and Centaurians. We'll need their ships in the coming battle. The orders cascaded through the defense network. Throughout the solar system, hidden facilities that had lain dormant for years roared to life. On the dark side of the moon, massive construction bays opened, revealing partially completed warships that had been waiting for this moment. In the asteroid belt, automated factories began converting raw materials into weapon systems at an astonishing rate. Beneath the surface of Mars, thousands of engineers worked around the clock, installing new shield generators and weapon arrays. Humanity was preparing for war, not the war they had already won, but the war that was coming. The war that would decide the fate of their species. On Earth, life continued as normal. 7 billion people went to work, raised their children, and dreamed of their futures. They had no idea that in 14 months, the greatest battle in human history would be fought in the space above their heads. They did not know that their survival depended on a secret defense network that had been 2 centuries in the making. Admiral Lee Dong-Wu hoped they would never need to know. He hoped the battle would be fought and won in the silence of space, far from the eyes of the people he had sworn to protect. But he also knew that hope was not a strategy. He looked up at the stars visible through the small window in his underground office. Somewhere out there, an alien armada was preparing to end humanity's existence. They had no idea that they were flying into a trap far more sophisticated than the one that had destroyed their first fleet. The humans had learned from every battle they had ever fought, not just against aliens, but against each other. They had studied the art of war for millennia, perfecting their tactics, refining their strategies. The Carthians thought they were facing a primitive species that had barely crawled beyond its own atmosphere. They were wrong. They were so very wrong. Lee turned away from the window and walked back to his command center. There was work to be done, and only 14 months to do it. He would not waste a single day. The future of humanity depended on it. Outside, the stars continued their ancient dance, indifferent to the fate of the small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. But beneath that planet's surface, in hidden facilities scattered across the solar system, humanity's defenders worked tirelessly to ensure that their species would survive whatever the galaxy threw at them. The Carthian Empire had declared war on Earth. They had no idea that Earth had been preparing for that declaration for centuries. The trap was already closing. The enemy was already doomed. They simply didn't know it yet. And by the time they realized the truth, it would be far too late. The Second Carthian Armada arrived 14 months later, 50,000 warships, the largest fleet the Empire had ever assembled. Admiral Vorton commanded from his flagship, Annihilator, a vessel 3 times the size of the dreadnoughts that had come before. His orders were simple: scour the solar system clean. But as the fleet emerged from hyperspace, silence greeted them. No defensive fire. No human ships. Just the cold, empty void and the distant blue glow of Earth. Deploy scouts, Vorton ordered. Find their defenses. The scouts moved forward, and vanished. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Simply gone from all sensors, as if they had never existed. "Report," Vorton demanded. "Admiral, we are detecting energy signatures throughout the asteroid belt. Thousands of them. They're everywhere." The asteroid belt lit up. Thousands of platforms that had appeared as inert rocks suddenly unfolded, revealing weapon arrays that glowed with deadly light. The human fleet emerged from hiding, not hundreds of ships, but thousands. Each vessel sleek, dark, and utterly silent. "You have entered sovereign human space," a voice broadcast across all frequencies. "This is Admiral Lee Dong-Woo of the Earth Defense Command. You will turn back now, or you will share the fate of your predecessors." Vorton laughed. "Primitives. Open fire." The battle lasted 6 hours. The Carthian fleet fought with desperation, but nothing they did could pierce humanity's defenses. Their weapons were absorbed by shields that had been designed specifically to counter Carthian technology. Their formations were broken by ships that moved with impossible coordination. And when the human fleet finally opened fire, the Carthians learned the true meaning of destruction. Quantum disruptors tore through their capital ships like paper. Matter converters reduced cruisers to component atoms. Stealth vessels appeared from nowhere, striking at command ships before vanishing again. Admiral Vorton's flagship was destroyed in the 3rd hour, its death explosion lighting up the void like a second sun. Without their commander, the remaining Carthian ships scattered, but there was nowhere to run. The human fleet had surrounded them completely. "Admiral," Commander Kong reported from her station, "the last enemy vessel has been disabled. They're requesting surrender." Lee studied the display. 20 ships remained from the armada of 50,000. Their crews were terrified, broken, defeated. "Accept their surrender," Lee ordered. "Send medical teams to the damaged vessels. We're not barbarians." The war was over. The Carthian Empire never sent another fleet. The survivors who returned to their homeworld carried stories of human weapons that defied physics, of human ships that appeared from nowhere, of a species that had turned their entire solar system into a fortress. In the years that followed, other species heard the tales. They marked Earth as forbidden territory. They warned their children never to approach the small blue world in the outer spiral arm. On Earth, 7 billion people never learned how close they had come to extinction. They lived their lives in peace, unaware of the silent war that had been fought in the space above their heads. That was how Admiral Lee wanted it. He had spent his life protecting them, and he would spend whatever years he had left ensuring that they never knew the cost. Admiral Lee Dong-Woo died 11 years after the battle, surrounded by his family in a small house overlooking the sea. His final words were addressed to no one in particular. "We kept them safe. That's all that mattered." He was buried with full military honors, though the public was told only that he was a veteran who had served his country with distinction. The truth of his service was known only to a select few, who carried it with them to their own graves. The hidden defense network remained active, maintained by generations of soldiers who had sworn oaths of silence. The moon continued its silent vigil, its weapon systems hidden beneath artificial rock. The asteroid belt still bristled with concealed weapons platforms, waiting for the next threat. But the next threat never came. The Carthian Empire collapsed within a century, weakened by internal strife and the loss of their greatest fleets. Other species rose to fill the void, but they all remembered the warning: avoid the small blue world. Avoid the humans. Earth remained peaceful, primitive in appearance, deadly in truth. The galaxy learned to leave it alone. And humanity continued its quiet existence, blissfully unaware of the fortress they lived on, the silent guardians who watched over them, and the enemies who had fallen to Earth's hidden might. Some secrets are too dangerous to share. Some victories are too costly to celebrate. And some wars are fought not for glory, but for the simple, sacred right to exist. The stars belonged to everyone. But Earth belonged to humanity. And humanity intended to keep it. 20 years after the Second Battle, a young Carthian explorer named Tharvik discovered a classified archive buried deep within his homeworld's ancient data systems. The files contained the complete tactical records of both failed invasions of Earth. He spent months studying them, unable to believe what he was reading. The humans had not simply defeated the Empire. They had predicted every move, countered every strategy, and done so with 0 casualties across both engagements. Their technology was generations beyond anything the Empire possessed. Their ships could phase through matter, reconfigure their hulls in real time, and strike from dimensions the Carthians couldn't even perceive. And yet, the humans had not pursued their victory. They had not invaded the Empire. They had not sought revenge. They had simply returned to their silent watch, content to be left alone. Tharvik wrote a thesis that became required reading in every military academy across what remained of the Empire. Its conclusion was simple: humanity does not seek conquest. They seek only to be left in peace. But if you threaten them, they will erase you from existence and go back to their lives as if nothing happened. This is not arrogance. This is not cruelty. This is the most dangerous form of strength, the kind that does not need to be displayed. On Earth, the hidden defense network slowly decommissioned its oldest systems. New generations of soldiers took their oaths of silence, maintaining the watch that had kept humanity safe for generations. The moon's artificial crust was reinforced. The asteroid belt's weapon platforms were upgraded. Mars remained a fortress, its true purpose hidden beneath red dust. But the threats grew fewer. The galaxy learned. The small blue world at the edge of the spiral arm became a legend, a place you did not go, a species you did not provoke. Other civilizations rose and fell, but Earth remained unchanged, peaceful, unaware. Commander Han Sol Kim retired to a small farm in the Korean countryside. He grew vegetables, raised chickens, and never spoke of the battles he had witnessed. When his grandchildren asked about his service, he told them he had been a communications technician. They believed him. That was the point. General Park Min-soo died on Luna, in the command center he had called home for 40 years. His final order was simple: keep watching. Keep waiting. Keep them safe. The watch continued. Admiral Lee Dong-woo's grave became a pilgrimage site for a select few, soldiers who knew the truth, who had served in the Shadow War that never made the history books. They left flowers and saluted in silence. They did not speak of why they came. The public assumed they were honoring a forgotten veteran. They were not wrong. They just did not know the whole truth. No one ever would. That was the price of the peace humanity had earned. The stars turned. The galaxy spun. And Earth, small and blue and beautiful, continued its ancient orbit around an unremarkable sun. To any observer, it looked like a primitive world, barely capable of interstellar flight, inhabited by a species more interested in their own conflicts than the wider universe. That was exactly what humanity wanted them to see. Deep beneath the surface, in facilities that had no official existence, the watch continued. Sensors monitored the void for threats. Weapons waited in silent readiness. Soldiers trained in darkness, preparing for a war they hoped would never come. The alien Superfleet had entered Earth space. And it was never seen again. The galaxy drew its own conclusions. The galaxy was wise to do so. Because humanity had learned the oldest lesson of survival: the wolf does not howl to announce the hunt. The wolf moves in silence, strikes without warning, and returns to the shadows before its prey even knows it is dead. Earth was not a world to be conquered. It was a fortress to be avoided. And the galaxy, finally, completely, understood.